Hi guys, welcome back to part 4 of the transition presentation. What we're going to cover in part 4 is extremely important, and it will have a massive influence on the amount of prospects that you actually convert to trainees. Now, just a quick overview again. If you follow our predictable selling system, you will know that we attract potential prospects from their Facebook feeds, completely different to what our major competitors do. And we simply seed the idea that becoming a driving instructor just may be something that could work for them. There is no selling involved whatsoever. It isn't come by our course, which of course is what 99% of our competitors do. We then give them the opportunity to request the 62-page book. And the 62-page book does a fantastic job of warming them up. And the reason it does a great job is because it gives them all the facts, figures, all the details, nuts and bolts of what it's actually like to work as a driving instructor. And they can then make a decision, or at least partly make a decision, on whether or not they feel this is the right direction for them. And again, a hugely powerful part of the book is the fact that it isn't trying to sell them anything at all. It isn't come by our course. It simply doesn't do that. All it does is take them to the next step. And remember, what we're doing here is sort of baby steps. We just warm them up. We give them more content. We warm them up. We give them more content. We warm them up. And then eventually, we get them to pick up the phone and book a meeting, interview, whatever you want to call it, and they come along and see us. But in part of that process, after they receive the book, of course they receive a direct mail piece. By direct mail I mean postal mail, and that goes along with the book. And then you know that, again, if you're following our system, you know that we then send them a second direct mail a few days later. So we've got to give them the opportunity to actually read through the book, because that is absolutely vital that they do that. You know, if you're then following up to a prospect that hasn't read the book, you're dealing with a completely different person than the one that has read it, because they're not warmed up. So then, of course, we send them a 12-page direct mail. So, you know, a 12-page letter in the post. And this letter has been honed and changed and tried and tested now for probably a period of about 6 years. And I'm going to go through that letter with you right now. Now, as I said before, whether you're actually following our predictable selling system or not, if you are, then make sure that you are using the most up-to-date and current letter that we have. So it's available on the membership site. It was updated literally, you know, at the beginning of January. So if you're not downloaded the new one, I suggest you go and do that. If you're not following our system, then what I'm going to cover off in that 12-page letter, there are some very, very key selling points within that letter. And these are the things that I would cover off on an interview. And it's really important that you understand those in order that we can avoid any type of price matching. But I'll come to that in a second. So the system that we operate, basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our prospects into a competition-free zone. So what I mean by that is that, again, you know, it is literally 99% of our competitors who sell their courses for anywhere between, you know, £795 to a couple of grand. They all compete in the trough, which is Google Ads. Google Ads can be fantastic, but I just think in this case, you just don't want to be going there. Because unless you're going to give your course away for free, you're just not going to compete with them. So by getting them on Facebook and taking them away from that environment, and then giving them the book, and then giving them the follow-up mails, we're able to operate to some degree in a competition-free zone. And I know many of the people I've signed up, I mean, I can tell by talking to them, that a lot of these guys have not even bothered to go and check out our competition, because in some cases they're almost unaware. And I like to think that the information I could give them would sort of waive them from doing that in the first place. So, okay, so it's important to understand that we're trying to isolate our prospects and get them into a competition-free zone. I've already mentioned that, it is 99% of our competitors. They all compete either with Google Ads or job boards, or in both in most cases. And if you go look at any of those, it is absolutely rammed, with the nationals in particular, plus locals, and they're all trying to sell their instructor training packages. So what I'm basically saying is, do not try and compete, because if you do, you'll almost certainly lose, or you will pay massive amounts of advertising costs, and you'll end up selling your courses or even giving them away for free. So let's get back to the 12-page direct letter then. So in January 2018, again, I made another fundamental shift. And what I come to realize is that if I could get someone to interview, I was pretty confident that I could sell myself and I could sell the driving school. And the reason I was able to do that, because during that interview, there are some absolutely key selling points that I just know is going to blow them away. And these are what I'm going to cover with you in this direct mail. But of course, one of the issues I had was that I can only do this if I get them to interview. Now, if they don't come to interview, I'm not able to get that point across to them. So I sort of took all the main points from the interview and I then included it in the 12-page direct mail. So that made sure that they were getting this information. And of course, that had a huge impact on the amount of people that went on then to book interviews. What we're trying to do in this 12-page letter is we're trying to position ourselves to avoid any type of price matching. Because if your prospect is only going to buy on price, why on earth would they pay us £3,500 for a course that they could buy for less than £2,000? The reason is because we have to position it correctly. Now in 2018, I actually sold 13 training courses, and they were all at least 3,497 or more. A couple of folk took the installment option, and they actually did pay a little bit more than that. So how can I, if someone says to me it's all about price, how then can I sell 13 courses at $3,500? Now, to just bring things up to date, I've actually sold 4 courses in just 24 days of 2019. And the value of those 4 courses is virtually £14,000. The nationals, even with their massive budgets and agencies and everyone they use, don't even come remotely close to achieving those type of figures. And what I'm going to try and do with you in the 12-page letter is explain as to why that is. It really is not about the price. It's about how you position yourself and what you have to offer. Do not allow price matching. If your prospect is buying on price, you have failed to sell your value. Very important factor that you understand. Okay, so we're going to go into this 12-page letter, and I'm going to walk you through that right now. Now, this is a big letter, so I'm not going to go into every detail. I'm going to give you the outline because, again, if you're following our predictable selling system, then you'll know how it works. But I'm really keen to point out the key selling points contained within this letter, and whether or not it's something that you currently offer or whether you don't. There's a reason behind everything I'm about to say to you. So if you decide for some reason to change it, or to not offer it, or to do something different, then that is probably going to affect the results you get. Now, it could be you get better results than I do, but it could be that you get far worse results. So what I would suggest, if there is a reason why I do the things I do, and I'll explain them to you as we go through this letter. Okay, so the first thing is then, this is a template letter, of course. The only one thing I need to change on this letter before I sent out is here, and that is the name of the prospect. So very important, it's personalized. So you just need to change that. Okay, so it goes on. It's been about 5 or 6 days since you requested my book, what it's really like. So I've already sort of covered that one off. I'm not really going to go into all these details, and I'll just skip over these. But what I'm going to do, as I've suggested, is I will point out the key selling points within this letter. Now, the first thing that comes up is here. Okay, so once qualified, you will have a guaranteed position as a franchised instructor and the choice of your working area. Now, of course, from a driving school owner's point of view, of course we want them to come and work as a franchisee. That's the whole point. Yes, we get paid very well for training them, but that's short term. You know, the long term game is the fact that they then join our driving school. So that's solved our recruitment problem. In fact, when you weigh this up, they've actually paid us a substantial bunch of cash to become a franchisee. I just like that model. Okay, and what they're looking for is a degree of security. So, of course, that's what we're able to give them. So it's a really important point that you absolutely spell out to them, that you will be offering them a guaranteed position. However, you also have to be a little careful here, and you need to make sure that you mention to them that they are completely free to go independent or work with any driving school of their choice. Now, we don't want them to do that. Of course we don't. But the more open we are with them, the more they will buy into it. So yes, we're going to guarantee them a place, but they don't have to take it. Now, it's at this stage that I then mention to them about, what's general practice with the nationals. And this is positioning factor number one. If you go off and talk to the nationals, they will often offer you cut price training with a guarantee of a franchise for anywhere between 1 and 2 years. Now, you could view that as offering you some type of security. Let me assure you, that is absolutely not what they're saying. What they're saying is that we will give you cut price training to get you qualified, but then you are actually going to sign up for 1 to 2 years with us as a franchisee to make damn sure we get our money back. Believe me, that is what they're saying to you. However they decide to dress it up. Now, if you've done any level of research into this industry, you probably know there has been some bad press, simply because, a lot of, and I keep using the nationals because they're the ones that tend to use that model, but not all of them. Sometimes locals do as well. So you sign up and you qualify, and you've done that at a cheap rate. Then you go to work as a franchisee with them, and then you find that you're not getting enough pupils. And this problem is rife, believe me, because they simply train up too many people without having the infrastructure or the predictable selling systems that's going to generate enough work for all of their franchisees. They just simply get too big. And then you find you're not getting enough work. And you're struggling to, make ends meet. But you're stuck. You're just stuck in this franchise agreement for 1 or 2 years, and you can't get out of it. You have to pay them back. Many people have taken them to court. And to my knowledge, no one wins. Because as you can imagine, they have this watertight, you've accepted cheap training, and now you have to pay it back, and you pay the price. Ultimately, you will always pay the price one way or another. Now, what we do, we can't do that because we're a local provider. We live on your doorstep. We're not like in an office 200 miles away and dealing with people you've never met. I live in your area. I'm on your doorstep. And what I say to you has to be correct. So the model we have is that our franchised instructors work on a 30-day rolling agreement. It's not a contract. It's just an agreement. And any of them can leave at 30 days notice. And, if I'm not, that's a really healthy arrangement as far as I'm concerned, because any of them can leave for whatever reason and whenever they wish. So if I'm not looking after them, or they don't feel they're getting enough pupils, they can simply leave and go work for one of my competitors, or they could, of course, go independent. Now, I don't want them to do that. So of course I've got to look after them. But again, by being open, this is a massive selling factor. And that's why we don't discount our training, because everybody's going to have to charge the same one way or another. But we would rather be upfront with this and put our cards on the table right from the start. And remember that this is not just about us training you up. I've got a vested interest in your future, because I'm training you, not because you're paying me to train you. I'm training you because I want you on my team. I want you to help me grow and sustain my driving school. That is my purpose. Okay, guys, so, I would listen to this a few times, because this is massively important. And this is the positioning selling point number one. If you don't explain the way I've just done, this is going to have a massive effect on the amount of people that you convert. Okay? Good. Okay, so then, it's normal practice to cover one town like Bridgewater, Taunton, and not run around all over the place. And I mentioned this one because, of course, again, going back to the Nationals, it's not unusual for these guys to expect you to cover, 3 or 4 towns just so they can get you enough work. And I want to point out to them that we don't do that, because otherwise you're just going to be burning fuel and you can have more downtime than uptime. So again, it's, I wouldn't say it was a massive key selling point, but you definitely need to mention it to them. Okay, so we've discussed your preferred days of working, and I'm just giving them some examples of, what we tend to do. At this point as well, I will mention to them about 2 hours. And, our business model is that we only offer 2-hour lessons. We don't do 90 minutes. We don't do 1 hour. And the 2 reasons we don't do that. One is because I just don't think it gives good value to your pupil, 1 hour. And secondly, it's good business sense to do 2 hours, because of course then in an 8-hour working day, you need 4 customers, not 8. And you have 4 bits of downtime, not 8. And look at the fuel that you waste traveling from one location to the other. I'm never really going to be that derogatory to, competitors, but I need them to understand that the normal practice within the industry is not actually to provide 2 hours. But that's why we do it, because we have, again, we're here to look after you. And our job, our function, is to make sure that we maximize your earning potential. Now, again, you guys may not offer 2 hours, but if you don't, I would seriously think about this. And this is not just about what you do in your driving school right now and whether you consider an hour is okay or 90 minutes. Also consider the huge selling point that this is when you're trying to sell your package to someone else. So this is another feather in our cap, if you like, that we can get one over on our competition. Okay, so it goes on then to explain about possible earnings. Now, you would need to edit this and fill this out, because of course we all charge different rates. So look through that, and you would just need to change that accordingly. In here is just a detail, and again, this is information that they will find extremely valuable, because of course someone is not able to make a decision unless they have the facts and figures. So I give them, on our basis, if they're working 8 hours a day, then they're going to be earned £4,000. This is not fabrication. It's not made up. This is absolute fact. Typical tuition, vehicle insurance, £40, £45 maybe. Contract hire, that's generally our preferred option. So again, depending on the mileage that these guys are going to be doing, it's in a ballpark figure of about £310. Our current franchise fee is $268. Fuel is obviously variable, and we want to explain that to them, that and these were based on actual figures from a couple of my employed instructors, and it did actually work out at £1.62 per hour. So they can see their monthly profit and they can see their annual. Again, this is, if you think of our competition, the Nationals, it's all 30,000. Well, I think it's 40,000 now. So, earn 40,000. It's a headline figure. I don't like that headline figure. I like to give them the facts, and then they can see how those figures are achieved and whether or not they are realistic, which they are in this case. Now we move on to another very key point, because when I meet someone for interview, as you know by now, I do spend probably 15, if not 20 minutes, literally listening to them. I mean, one of the first questions is, well, why have you come here today? I've given you a whole bunch of information and you've decided that it's worth a chat. So I'd just like to find out a little bit more about you, because at this stage, you know far more about me than I do you. So that's it. And then they start talking, and they will tell you exactly what their pain is and why they're looking for this type of opportunity. So once they finish talking, then the next thing I'm going to say to them is, okay, so let's forget about the training completely. And let's fast track, and I generally give about 4 months. I know in reality it takes a little bit longer than that. However, if they fast track, they could do it sooner. So let's forget about the training. Let's fast track, let's say 3 to 4 months forward. And let's assume now that you've gone through our training course and you're now qualified. And we're now having this discussion as you're now considering whether or not to come and work with us as a franchisee within our driving school. And what I'm going to explain, because I want them to be in that mindset. I want them to be able to see the vision, that they have their tuition car, they're sat in there, they're going off to work, and this is how we're going to look after them. And again, guys, I can't again stress how important this is. You're selling yourself, and you as a business person and a driving school owner, and you're selling the package. You are not selling a training course. Completely get that out of your head. You're not selling them a training course. You're selling them the lifestyle opportunity. And at this particular stage, what we're doing now is explaining to them how we're going to look after them, how the business works, how they're going to get paid, how does all this work. This is big, big, big. This is what they're going to want to know. Okay, so this is how the process works on a daily basis then. So we receive the call, and then we establish what area the caller's in, because we cover like 8 areas. The top to bottom is something like 60 odd miles, 70 miles. So we need to know where the caller's from before we can go any further. Now, we look at your diary. We've already discussed the diary, and we've shown them how we're going to build a diary that completely matches whatever it is they want. So they choose the working days, they choose their working hours, and really, really stress that we don't have anything to do with that. I mean, that is their choice. It's their business. They're just working under our umbrella. So, okay, let's assume then that the caller we'll use Bridgwater in this example. So we'll, and always keep talking to them by their first name and keep relating to the area they're going to work in. Because if you do that, that becomes more real to them. So let's assume his name is, I think it was Neil at the top of the page. So Neil. Okay then, Neil. So you're going to be covering the area of Bridgwater. So let's assume then that the call that has come in, they live in Bridgwater. So the next thing we establish is what times the learner is available. So, what days are they off? And we'll probably find that in most cases they've got a couple of days free, especially if they're in college. A little bit different if they're in employment. But if they're in college, let's say that, they're off on a Monday or something, or they go into college at lunchtime. Okay, so then we check your diary. Now, assuming that you have availability showing on your diary, so basically you've said to us, I want this slot to be filled, and then we can match that with the potential customer that's on the phone. Then we book them in the slot. Simple as that. So once we've booked them in the slot, and only after we've booked them in the slot, we then inform the customer that we operate here on a prepay basis. And the next question to them is, how would you like to pay? Now, this is selling point number 2. And again, a huge, huge factor in conversion. So at this stage now, I would break off from this and I would explain to them why we are prepay. Now, the thing, when you're talking to your prospect, the thing to point out here is that the majority of people whether that be the students themselves or whether it be the parents, probably about a 50-50 split as to who's booking and paying for the lesson. When they actually pick the phone up and ring you, most of them have really got no intention of making any type of payment, because of course you have to remember they're hugely influenced by their parents, and their parents learned to drive 20-30 years ago, and the norm then was to show up, do a 1-hour lesson and pay your instructor in cash. That's been the norm for years and years and years, and in some cases it still is. And there's a huge proportion of the driving school industry, whether that be independents or even some of the driving, the bigger driving schools, still accept cash on the day. And again, I'm going to explain to you why that is a really, really bad idea. Now, what we generally find is that even though they didn't expect to make a payment, actually about 80% of all those that ring up and book will actually pay. Because of course they've always got access to a card of their own, or if not, mummy or daddy's going to be paying for them. Somebody's going to have access to a card. And of course we live in a world now that's very, very small, and it's not unusual for us to take bookings. We all arrange the lessons, and then mum or dad will ring up from anywhere in the world to make payment. In fact, it wasn't that long ago we took a payment for a block of 10 hours. It was dad making a payment, and he was literally about to board a flight in Dubai, and he just rung up and he made a payment. So that's this whole online thing now has completely changed everything. But let's just assume then they are one of the 20% and they're not able to make that payment right now. Okay, no problem. So depending when the lesson is booked for, we explain to them now, we are prepaid 48 hours. So for example, now if we're booking you in for, Wednesday or Thursday, we tell them exactly when that payment has to be made by. Now we give them the option. Now you can either make a BACS transfer to us and we'll give them the details, or you can actually just ring us up and pay between 9 and 6. Someone will answer the phone and you can make a payment over the phone, which is still the most popular method, by the way, despite our efforts at trying to get them onto the website and make an e-commerce payment. That is still by far the biggest option. So that's something else for you to think about as you scale and as you go forward, whether or not you're going to have someone in a position to take calls and take payments during the working day. What happens if they don't? And remember all this, I'm talking to the prospect and I'm selling them our service, and all the time I'm positioning between us and what our competitors do. Don't lose sight of that, guys. This is what this is all about. I'm telling them what we do, and I'm telling them what competitors do. And then, by the time we finish with them, they're not going to be able to price match me, because it just will not be comparable. Okay, so if they don't, for some reason they don't pay within the 48 hours, we cancel the lesson slot and we make it available to someone else, because they're only a customer once they've paid us money. And we've explained it to them in some detail. Now, and we will send them a letter, and the letter will explain also when they have to pay. Now, if that doesn't happen, we don't mess around waiting to see whether they're going to show up on the day or not. We just cancel it and we'll try and book someone else in there. So really, really important. Now, assuming that they make the payment, then that payment does not go into our driving school. It goes into a holding account. It's a customer account, because this is not our money, it's yours. And you need to really emphasize this point to them, because they like this. Neil, Neil, we've booked this customer for you, and we've collected the money for you, and that goes into a holding account. And then what happens, it's a usual BACS banking system. So 3 working days, and then we're going to transfer that money into your bank account. Now, this has got nothing to do with how many hours you're teaching them that particular week. It's got nothing to do with when they decide to start the lessons. They may be 2-3 weeks time. We're going to transfer that money to you in its entirety as soon as it clears the BACS system. Now, here comes another positioning factor, because then I explained to them, this is not how the nationals do it. And what generally happens with the nationals is that you would do 2 hours with them this particular week. You send them a timesheet, and then they will transfer those 2 hours across to you. So basically what they're doing is they're holding your money. So it's your money, not theirs, but they're holding it, and they're only going to drip feed it to you. Now, there are two reasons why we don't do that. One is, as I've already explained, it isn't our money, it's yours. And secondly, why would I even do that? I mean, it's just an admin nightmare. And the interest that I would gain on it is zero, virtually. So we just pay it across to you. So again, guys, an important factor that I'm now telling my prospect, he or she now knows that they're going to get paid 3 working days, and that money's going into their bank account. This is massively important to them. And if you're not doing this and not covering this, believe me, this again will have a big impact on the amount of people that you convert to trainees. Okay, so the other thing that I would go into now is that, I've already mentioned that when folk ring up, most of them don't actually think they're going to be making any payments. And a lot of them think that they're going to be booking a 1 hour lesson. So ideally, when someone rings, I want to be selling them 10 hours, not 1 or not 2. The reason that we try and sell them 10 hours, 80% of callers that ring up thinking they're not going to be paying, thinking that they're going to be paying for 1 hour. In actual fact, 80% of them end up paying and booking 10 hours. Okay, and the way we do that is that, it doesn't really matter what they ask for. So if they ask for the 1 hour, so unfortunately we don't do 1 hour. And we explain why that is, because it's just not good value for you. And so you'd be better off doing 2 hours. Now, we specifically do not discount 2 hours, and I'll explain why that is. So 2 hours, at the time of recording our core lesson price, £27. And so if they do 2 hours, £54. That's what we're basically going to be taking off them, £54. So what we say to them then is that, and bearing in mind that we work in a very commoditized industry, and you can buy driving lessons locally for £20, £21, somewhere in that region. So we say to them, look, we operate a try us and see deal here. And again, this is not an introductory discount. Be crystal clear on this. There is a massive difference between simply giving an introductory discount. This is not what this is. This is a try us and see deal. So we say to them, okay, so that's £54. However, you could take advantage of our try us and see deal. You book 10 hours with us. Now, we are so confident that you're going to love our service and our tuition that we're prepared to give you a substantial discount to try us and see. Now, of course, one of the negatives to anyone committing to paying 10 hours is that they may be a bit reluctant, because if they don't know you or they don't trust you completely, so then we can blow that out the water. And we also offer you a full money back guarantee. So if for any reason whatsoever during that lesson you don't like our instructor, you don't like the way he looks, you don't like the way he smells, you don't like the service that you've received, anything at all, I will give you a full refund. Now, when you think about this, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Because now all of a sudden they're thinking about a booking hour. Now they're going to be booking 10 hours because they're going to save some money. And this is huge. Now, how much of a discount you give them is up to you. That will depend on market forces. But we've run this now for like 7 years, if not longer. And it's been hugely powerful to get them to commit. Now, why do we want them to? And again, I'm going back. Remember, I'm talking to my prospect. This is about the prospect now. And I explained to them, some of them have been self-employed and some of them haven't. If they've never been self-employed, they don't understand the concept. If they have been self-employed, maybe they do. And I say, look, which is better for you? I book you a new customer that's worth 2 hours to you in your diary. It's worth £54. Or I book a new customer that's worth 10 hours, which is like £220 or whatever it is. Which is best? And the thing that you need to sell them is there's something called current bank and future bank. Now, current bank is the 2 hours that they're going to be doing, let's say, next week. Future bank is the other 8 hours that's going into your bank account for the future. Okay? Really important that you understand that, because anybody that runs a business, if they've got the opportunity to have money in advance, that is much, much more powerful than it is having it paid as you go. You know, imagine running a shop and you're relying on people walking past that might pop in, or relying on a subscription service where someone is paying you every week. And we try, and this is really important when, you know, if we're talking to someone that's employed, there will be a transitional period. Now, of course, when you leave your current job, and then you start start on board with us on the Monday, let's say, that's a transitional period while we build your diary up. So what we like to do is try and get you as many of these 10-hour block bookings as we can, and you've then got all the money in the bank literally before you even start on your first day's work. And you're always going to be working in advance. Now, there's very few industries right now that rely on cash up front. Most of them are invoice or chasing money. You just don't want to be doing that. So you want to make sure. So what we're doing here is making sure that you've always got your money in advance. Now, again, you can just tell by looking at them, they're sucking this information up big time. Now, and again, I'm going to remind them that this is not the norm. This is not what normally happens in our industry. And still to this day, the vast majority of independents and a lot of the nationals still do not take payment up front. Now, I'm going to explain to you why, the second reason why this is a really, really good idea. So it goes on to say, you know, tens of thousands of pounds in lessened income are lost each day in our industry, where the instructor arrives only to find the customers change their mind, forgot, become ill, you know, a number of other reasons. So this, and I talk them through this, and I try and make this as real to them and personal as I can. So again, I'll use their name. Okay, so Neil, just imagine this scenario. You know, you've just spent 20 minutes traveling from, and I will use their, because obviously I know where they live, and you will as well. So Neil was in, let's say he's in Durley, which is a suburb of Bridgewater. So to make this real and to make them see the vision, I would say to him, okay then Neil, imagine this scenario, you know, you just left your house there up in Durley. You're going to spend 20 minutes traveling across town because your customer is in the college. Now, what if that customer doesn't turn up? You know, what if he's not there? So basically, you've just lost 20 minutes of your time traveling. You've now lost 2 hours lesson fees, let's say £54. And then you've got to be traveling back again afterwards. Hugely frustrating. And I can assure you that this is something that happens in our industry every day. Tens of thousands of pounds are written off every single day. However, in addition to our prepaid policy, we also operate zero tolerance cancellations. Now again, this is not the norm. You know, a huge amount of independents have no cancellation policies, and if they do, they're not documented. You know, it's verbal, which there is no such thing as a verbal agreement. It's got to be documented. And they simply write this money off. And even some of the nationals still do not have a cancellation policy. Now this sort of goes back to the prepay, because if you don't operate prepay, you are not going to be able to enforce zero tolerance, because one goes in hand with the other. Because if you don't have their money, how can you don't have their money to deduct, so you're going to lose it. Now, this is not something we hide from them. So when we book that customer up and they make the payment, the following day we send them a letter. Now, we send them a letter in the post. We don't use email. I know we live in a digital world now, but we send it in the post because we know that they're going to open it. And I know there's a very slight cost to doing that, but that is far outweighed by the fact that we know that they will have our terms and conditions. And we don't hide it away. As they open that envelope, it is right in the very front. And it says, please note, if you cancel within 48 hours of your lesson start time, you will be charged in full for any reason. Okay? Very, very important part of this process. And then I explained to them, okay, so this is how it works. So you've just traveled 20 minutes across, from your home in Durley, you've traveled down to the college, your person is not there. So what we need to do is, of course, we ring them and find out where they are, but maybe they don't answer. If we're at their home, we go up and knock on the door, try ringing them again, and we need to stay there for about 20 minutes. And if they still don't show up, then we leave. Now, you do need to be prepared to go back any time during that 2-hour slot, even if it's 30 minutes, because we can go back and do 30 minutes of what's remaining. We owe them that. However, let's assume that they don't show up. You simply deduct that 2 hours from their account. That's why we're prepaid, and you've been paid. Basically been paid for driving across town, but that's their problem because they haven't shown up or they've cancelled or whatever. Now again, going back to our prospect, you can see them sucking this information up, and you really need to emphasize, because this is another huge positioning point. Because I then make this statement, which is massively powerful to them. And I says, none of our franchised instructors leave their driveways unless they've been paid. And I just let that one sink in a second. This is very, very powerful. Okay. Because now they can see, oh my God, Jesus, didn't know all this happened. Didn't know we were getting all these cancellations. And he's telling me that, a lot of these companies just write this money off. I don't want to be doing that because that's going to affect my livelihood. Whereas these guys, by the sound of it, they're going to get the money up front. They're going to put it in my bank account. And if my pupil doesn't show up, then I'm still going to get paid. Guys, this is huge. Now, it could be that as you're listening to this, you do not operate a prepaid policy. Now, again, it's not for me to tell you how to run your business. But what I would suggest, having a prepaid policy would be extremely useful for yourself in your driving school. But it will be extremely powerful when you come to convert people and stop them trying to price match you against the competition. Having a zero tolerance cancellation, do you have that? I know a lot of you do. It needs to be documented, and you need to enforce it. And again, that will only do good things for your own driving school and stop you and your franchisees losing money. But again, it's a huge conversion factor and another massive element to stop your prospect price matching you. Now, if you choose not to do these things, as I keep saying, this could have a fundamental effect on your conversion rate. Okay, so on we go again. So I hope you're already getting the idea now. This letter is massively powerful, but your positioning, it's all about positioning yourself and stopping your prospect from price matching you against your competitors that are not offering this stuff. Okay, so we'll just sort of skip over this a little bit. Okay, so I've run through that with them. So that's the job. I've explained the business side of it. So I've explained how we're going to build a diary, how they're going to choose their days and hours they wish to work. We have no control over that. It's simply up to them. It's their business. We're just looking after them. We've explained how we will book them new customers, how we will transfer the money across to them, the safeguards that we have in place to protect their income so they're not going to lose any of it. And, as I said, we're price matching. We're stopping them price matching against our competitors. So once I've done that, it's usually, okay, so that's the business side of it then. Do you have any questions on any of that? Quite often they don't. It is covered quite comprehensively, but if they do, then you can answer them off. Okay, so that's the job then. Now let's have a look at getting you qualified. Now, this is the first time that I've mentioned anything about the training course. Now, this is completely different to what the norm, and again, all of our competitors, they sell the training course. As you can see, it is so different. That's not what I'm doing at all. I'm selling the business. I'm selling them the lifestyle. The training course is just something that we have to do to get from A to B. Right, okay, so instructor training course, again, I just explained to him we'd do a 20-minute driving assessment with you. Don't be concerned. You know, everyone is a little bit sort of concerned when we do a driving assessment. It's a good bit of fun, actually, because we could probably fill a whole A4 sheet before you even start the engine, and everyone is the same. We'll fix that relatively quickly, so you know, I'm almost sort of brushing that over. I go into some little detail about the training course and how we might, you know, what's going to sort of happen there. But this is another, now pay attention to this, because this is another key selling point. Now we all know that within our industry, the norm is for a 40-hour course. Now, of course, where that's come from, it all revolves around the training license, because that's the criteria. But there's absolutely no reason why it should. And interestingly, when you know I was audit registered for 6 years, until they told me they were going to disband it. So I stopped paying them. And until they give me a good reason to go back into it, I'm not going to. But anyway, that's beside the point. The guy, when you do audit, you do form a very good relationship with the top guys, you know, that are the assessors for that. And he told me that he is amazed why so many training companies offer 40 hours. Because and this is the senior examiner, in his own words, 40 hours is not even close. It's never enough. And he was really frustrated. And when he was looking at all my documents that obviously you do need to prepare for audit, one thing he was extremely impressed with is at the time we were offering a 60-hour course, and he liked that. And his main point was, if they're not ready at 60 hours, what are you going to do? And I says, I'm going to offer them more training, because he was absolutely fed up to the back teeth with training companies that sort of make people go for their, you know, their part 3 simply because they covered X amount of hours and not because they were ready. You know, same scenario with learners. We all know how that works. So he was quite impressed with that. But anyway, our course now is 80 hours. Now, I've been an instructor trainer since 2007, so a long time. I've got a lot of experience. I know what it takes to get someone qualified. And remember that while we're doing all of this, our interest is that we want our prospects to become qualified as soon as possible, because then we can get them into our driving school and then they start paying us a monthly residual income. That's my outlook. So I'm not going to do anything that slows this process down. So then why do I offer them 80 hours? Because in my experience, under the new standards check as we are now, that's realistically what most of them are going to need. And I know then that when they go down there, they stand an extremely good chance of passing first time. And I also know that when I then put them out to work, they're going to be, you know, a clone of exactly what we want. We've had enough time to not just their instructional ability, but also their business sense and buying into our business model and the way we do things. So that's why I do it. Now, I use this, again, this is another key positioning factor, because if any of your prospects have done any research, and of course some of them will have done, they will find that, you know, the big boys are generally offering 40 hours. I know some of them offer 50 or something, but 40 hours is the norm. And I need to point out to them now, I need to educate them. I says, right, okay, and be open with them. Have you actually done any research? Yeah. Okay, and how many hours are they offering? 40. Right. Okay, let me explain then. And I explained to them what I've just told you, why we do 80 hours. Now, our 80 hours is 60 hours of training. And then the last 20 hours, we allocate them a real pupil. We do not do training licenses. I hate training licenses. Number one is because I fail to see the value of a trainee out there teaching someone every day, and they almost treat it as like their job rather than the main purpose, which is to, you know, gain experience and to become qualified. Because if they're making mistakes, they'll get good at making mistakes, because if they're not being supervised, nobody knows. They don't make mistakes on purpose and they won't know. Our model is to supply them with a real life pupil. And our head trainer is sat in the back and supervises every single session for those 20 hours. That way we accelerate the process, because of course if our trainee's making any errors, then our trainer puts it right immediately, and that's good for him and of course the real pupil. So, and the second reason is that I have a really good local reputation, and I don't want to be known for supplying trainees and charging full price. So that's the other issue. But anyway, I'm detracting. You'll make your own, mate, and I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I'm just simply telling you what I do and my thoughts on the subject. If you decide to go with a training license, absolutely fine. You're the business owner. You do whatever you wish. All I would say is just weigh up the consequences of what it might do to your reputation management and how all that's going to work. And if you feel that's okay, absolutely fine. Then go with it. But again, the point I'm trying to make is that, again, if they try and price match, they say, well, okay, this national company's going to do it for, $795 or even $2,000. And then I say, so what, how many hours? And they go, 40. Right, okay. Well, believe me, 40 ain't enough. Trust me when I say this. Why do you think I offer 80 if I thought 40 enough? Why on earth would I even think about doing that? Just think about that for a second. It would be much more competitive for me to offer you 40. And I can't argue with that, but 40 isn't going to be enough. I just know. And remember, my vested interest in you is to get you qualified and get you working as instructor. It's not about the training as such. And this is a huge positioning factor. And the other thing is, we quite often people have to go off and they loan the money. $3,500 is a sizable stash of cash, and they often go off and get a loan. Supposing you sell them a 40-hour course, and they then go and take a loan out to pay for that, and then not ready. How are they going to fund potentially another 20 or even 40 hours? It kills them, and they drop out. And this is just bad PR. Whereas the way we do it, they fund it for 80 hours. It's very rare that we get anyone that's not ready in 80 hours. But if they weren't, they can just top up a couple of hours. And what I like to say to them is, look, if you're ready before we've done 80 hours, I'll just refund you the difference. And again, guys, don't underestimate this one either. This is a massive positioning factor again. And we've covered 3 or 4 of them now. Now, if this is not something that you're doing, once again, it could have a huge influence on the amount of people that you convert. That's why I'm going through this letter with you, because there are these key selling points. And just keep going back. Remember, I signed up 13 last year that all paid me $3,500. This stuff absolutely works, but you have to have the mechanism in place to make it work. Okay, so it is an ultimate and all-inclusive course fee. So of course it's all one-to-one training. We have one head trainer, and at this point I will also mention to them that it is sort of the norm for, again, the nationals to cram 2 or 3 trainees into a car with one instructor. And as much as I like their business model, I can obviously see why they do it. To me, you're diluting the amount of quality training that you're going to get, and it's much better done on a one-to-one basis. So again, hammer this point home. They pay for the theory. The course fee includes the 2 practical tests. We give them a lesson presenter and bits and pieces. So, and then we come to the course fee. So, we offer training to between 6 and 10 candidates each year. Actually, we do offer it more, but that's sort of where we put it out there. I don't want to give them the impression we run a bit of a conveyor belt and we're taking on more than we can deal with. And this, again, really important factor, this one. So we're offering a discount of £500 to the first 6 candidates who join the training course during 2019. Our course fee is actually $3,997. That is our course fee. I have never ever put my course fee down. Okay, never, ever since I've started this. But what I also find is that if you give them £500 off, which I'm not giving them anything, because I base it on 3,500, so it's just marketing. What happened during 2018 is that we actually got 7. My target for last year was 6 in the whole year, and I'd signed up 7 by May. Okay, so I completed my quota for the year in basically 5 months. And what I did then was I then removed the offer, and I was selling it at the 3,997, and that was a big mistake, because although I had 2 people sign up that are obviously paying me £500 each more, the amount of conversions really did drop off. So bearing in mind that I signed up, I signed up 7 in the first 5 months, and then I went the next 4 or 5 months and I only signed up 2. And with hindsight, I should have kept that offer on. And this year, 2019, I'm not removing that offer at all, because they don't know whether they're in the first 6 or not. So, you can manipulate that however you want. But there is we've talked about offers quite often, a bit like with the learners. Not having that offer in place makes a substantial difference to the amount of people that sign up. So I would hugely suggest, if you follow our model, go with the 3,997 and give them £500 off. And then, of course, it's 3,497, which is what we're after. We also offer a 4 installment option, and they can pay 4 installments of 937. And basically what they're doing is buying 20 hours. Now, this has been pretty popular, actually. I did 2 during the year, I did 2 more in December, and I've done 1 now in January. So that's 5. So, it is not the most popular. Still, most people pay the whole lot. But nevertheless, there are those that do like that option. And if, of course, they pay in installments, they end up paying a couple of £100 more. That's the penalty for paying it over time. And I explain, I don't hide that from them. I tell them, it's going to cost you a couple of £100 more. It's up to you. Really important that they understand that their training can be done around their current job, because, of course, a lot of them may well be in work. I mean, you do get them unemployed and redundant and all this stuff. But you really do need to mention that one. And then I go on about meet your personal trainer. Obviously, my trainer is Lee. He heads up my training program. And then again, that will be you. So a nice picture. And just on the picture, again, I'm not trying to tell you how to run your business, but branding is really important. Now, to me, Lee looks pretty presentable there. He's got logoed shirt on, he's got trousers, he's got shoes. He looks like, he's got some authority about him, and he looks like probably what a trainer should look like. If you choose to show your picture and you have, I don't know, jeans, trainers, something else on, and again, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that, bearing in mind that the prospect that's looking at you is going to be trying to form an opinion. This is not about the quality of the training you can give him, is whether or not he feels you're a business-like person and whether or not he can trust you with his livelihood. That's what this is all about. Now, this is obviously I don't teach them, but I'm quite happy with this branding. So that's something you have to pay some thought to. Okay, so the likelihood is at this stage, this is probably going to be you that does the training. So this bio here will be all about you, and not, in this case, about Lee. After qualification, now again, this is a big selling point. I sort of explained to them that, we're going to give you follow-up training, because of course we are. We have a vested interest. The day you qualify, we're confident that you've the ability to go out there and teach our customers, basically, look after them. But like any job, it will rely on experience, and you will make mistakes. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And the thing that alarms me is that the huge majority of newly qualified driving instructors never get any or never take any follow-up training. It's the day they qualify, that's it. What they know on that day stays with them for the rest of their days. Yes, of course, there are instructors that take CPD, they'll go and try and improve themselves, but very few of them, in comparison to the whole industry, do that. And that's quite alarming, because what we're going to do with you is that after 1 month, we'll let you get out there for a month, and then Lee's going to come and sit in with you, and basically he'll just have a look at the lesson and see if there's anything he can help you with. This is not judgmental, I absolutely assure you. It's there to help you. Now, of course, if there are things in there that might aid your retention of pupils, that's good for you, of course, because it's your business. It's obviously good for the pupil, and it's good for me as the owner of the driving school. So we all have a vested interest, and we think it's a really good investment of our resources to come out with you for a couple of hours and monitor and help you in any way that we can. And then we'll do that at 2 months, and we'll do it at 3 months, 6 months, and 12 months. Because we want to make sure you're the best instructor that you wish to be, and that you're looking after our customers, for the reasons I've already given. Now, as I said, it's quite alarming that this just simply doesn't happen within the industry. And obviously, if people go independent, they get absolutely no training. They have to go and pay for it themselves if they can find it. And if they're in a franchise, whether or not their franchise will actually offer them any ongoing training or not. I mean, that's debatable. Some do, some don't. So again, what I'm doing here is positioning ourselves. And again, it's another selling factor. When's the last time any of the nationals have provided a trainer for 2 hours to go and sit in on a lesson? As far as I know, they just don't do it. So again, it's a really good positioning factor to help sell our course. The next step now, I can obviously use, because we have our own offices, so I can use a picture of that. You're probably not going to have that. So you can either just leave it out, or you can think about something else you want to put in there. I would definitely put your own picture in there, because that makes it more personal. And the call to action at the end of this is give them their phone number. And we're hoping that we've given them enough information within this letter now, on the top of the other direct mails that we've sent them, on top of the book that we've sent them, and given them all the reasoning and positioning that we've given. I think it'll be quite difficult for them to leave the office, in my case, and go then and sign up. I'm going to go sign up with this national because they're half the price. Okay, so have you not listened to anything I've told you? It's going to come back and bite your ass, basically. But anyway, but very, very few people mention price to me. To be honest, if they did, I'd be almost inclined to throw them out the office. I think if you're trying to price match me, if you're going to make a decision based on price, it's probably better you leave right now and save us all a lot of time. That is my attitude. That is exactly, I would tell them that. I would just get rid of them, because they're just wasting my time. If you're not buying into the value that I've got on offer, go. Now, the likelihood is they can't afford it, because they wouldn't have come otherwise, because I've told them what the price is. And that's, of course, why we have this filtering process in place. So that's it, guys. So that's what I send out to them. So I said at the beginning, if you're following our, this is obviously a huge factor in our predictable selling system for recruiting PDIs. If you're following that system, the closer that you can keep to this, I suggest, the closer you're going to match our results. If you deviate from one or more of the things I've just explained, it could affect your sign-up rate. Okay, and I'm always going to revert back to what I do, because that is my system. That is the one I use day to day. And I've already mentioned that I've signed up 13, and they paid me a substantial amount of money during 2018. And we've already signed up 4 in 28 days, 24 days, I think it was, of January. So I'll leave that one with you. If you're a member of ADI Business Success, you can simply go and download this document, and you can just edit it according to your own means. But pay particular attention to your package, what you offer. Give that some deep thought. I will be back in the next section of this presentation, and we'll be looking at possible reasons why people may receive your book, have a look through it, but don't actually ring you up and book an interview. Okay, so I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. Please do like and share this video, and also subscribe to my channel. And when subscribing, please do remember to click the little bell. That way you'll get a notification every time I put up a new video. Thank you for watching.